Is domestic violence in the queer community getting better or worse? Let's get into it. Hi, I'm Daphne, and I am a certified date and relationship coach, as well as being a certified matchmaker. And I own a company called Fern Connections, which a lot of you already know. I want to talk about something that's really near and dear to me. I often talk about the first time I was introduced to, a same-sex couple who actually like were a couple. They lived together. And that was like my first experience, and I was about 16 years old. But one of the things that I don't talk a lot about is the fact that it was also my first introduction to domestic violence in the gay community. It was different. It was shocking. It was like almost unbelievable to think that you would have these two gay people who were fighting, like normal straight people who argue all the time, and whether or not it leads to something physical. This was my first experience as a teenager when it relates to gay domestic violence, right? And so I wanted to talk about this today because this is not something that's new. We know that this has been going on a long time. But since, the senseless death of the young man, the young nurse, the gay male, black man, last week or over the last couple of weeks, I wanted to talk about this because, unfortunately, it doesn't seem like things are getting better. And I want to make sure that we as a company who works with a lot of gay men across the country, and we work with a lot of people in the LGBTQ plus community to try to help them find love and happiness. I want to address this today because it really kind of hurt me to the core, thinking that just because someone doesn't want to be with you anymore, that you have to violently take their life. And there is no excuse, there is no reasoning, there is none of that for why someone would want to hurt someone in that way. And so I want to talk about this because this is not just an issue for now. This has been going on a long time, and we don't even have to get into too deeply into trans people and trans women, especially those that are Black women. The percentage of domestic violence and just violence against trans Black women is outrageous, right? And the numbers are not getting any better. And, we hear these stories all the time, like every single week, it seems like. There was a story last week, or a couple of stories, and I didn't want, that to get lost. And we kept hearing about, someone like O.J. Simpson, but we weren't hearing these stories about these senseless killings, these senseless domestic violence that's happening within the queer community. And to me, that's something that we want to keep front and center. We want to talk about, we want to be supportive of that. And so I want to talk about this today because, a lot of times, and regardless of what people believe or think, right? And this is why I think it's important for us to make sure that trans lives, queer lives, gay lives, Black lives, people of color and their lives matter, right? Because from the beginning, young people of color who are queer are a lot of times violated, and there's violence against them based on who they are, even at a very young age. And a lot of times that happens with someone that they know who's close to the family, or someone in the family who thinks that it's okay because this person is deciding whether or not they want to come out of the closet, or whether or not they're trying to decide how to identify as a young person, and someone thinks that it's okay to go in and do what we call like this intimate partner violence, or just violence in a sense that it could be like I said, someone who's close to the family, or someone who's partner of someone, or someone who's like an uncle or an aunt or whatever that is, a cousin, thinks that it's okay to go in and abuse these folks or these kids, these innocent people, just because that's what they want to do. And unfortunately, a lot of that is not reported. It's not open knowledge that it's happening, because a lot of times when stuff like that happens, you're so confused, you don't know what to do, right? As a young person, but even as an older person. So I want to talk about this because it's one of those things that I'm not sure that it's getting any better. And I think that we need to make sure that we keep this front and center. A couple of years ago, we wrote a blog about this, and I just want to make sure that, this is on everybody's radar. And let me just say this, that if you're in this situation as a young person, tell somebody at school, tell somebody somewhere who can help you. Because a lot of times, and I'm just going to be very honest, and, in the Black community or sometimes in other, communities of color, we don't listen to our kids. We don't want to admit that these things are happening, but we need to start doing better, and we need to start focusing on what's right and stop protecting these people who are hurting people for no good reason. And so I'm saying that to say is that let's allow people who are being abused, to speak their minds, to, come forward, and be safe and have, a safe environment and a safe place to do so. And then for those who are older and you're in these domestic violent relationships with people, love doesn't hurt you. Love is not painful, and just because someone apologizes doesn't make it right. So I'm just going to say that if you're in a situation or a relationship with someone, and every time you turn around or every now and again, there's, this abuse, physical, verbal, mental, emotional, whatever it is, right? Get some help. Tell somebody who can help you. There's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of organizations. And I know it's hard. It's hard sometimes because it's embarrassing, and you don't want to believe that this person is really bad who's hurting you. But let me tell you, whether or not you want to believe that or not, you're the person on the other end who's being abused. And so let me just say, and let me recap this, that I'm not sure that domestic violence in the queer community is any less. And I'm almost certain that it's probably more seen. It's probably more obvious. It's probably more, let me just say, it shows up more than we want to imagine, right? That we want to accept. But I think that it's important for us to give people a safe space so that they can report this violence, so that they can come forward. And I think that it's very important that justice be done. And that, let me just say something that, is going to ruffle a few feathers. Whether or not it's Black on Black or if it's whatever it is, right? Violence is violence. And if someone is hurting someone, for no good reason, unless someone is doing something, really horrible in the world, and I'm not really sure that we should be the judge, the judges of what happens like that. But I do know that if someone is hurt and someone is being hurt, they need to be able to have a safe way and a safe space to be able to report that. And we, as a community, need to be able to listen to that and be able to help them in a way to where they don't have to be afraid or they don't have to be judged or worried about being judged or being hurt or retaliated against more. So let me just say this, because I started with the question, is domestic violence in the queer community any worse or any better? And I'm just going to say that in my opinion, I think that it's worse. And what's worse is that, a lot of times people don't think that they can report it. They don't think that they can be heard enough or seen enough or safe enough to be able to tell their stories. And I think it's important for us as a community to listen.